Hey, Audrey.
Hi, Crystal Dawn. Here we
Mm,
are.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad mainly because this is something like on my, list of this week's highlights. I'm so glad to be here with you and talk about what we're about to talk about.
Yeah. I was also just thinking of bucket lists, and which is also kind of what we're talking about. Like really getting aware and making clear your bucket list items and then, um, gradually moving through them and, towards them, through them, completing them.
Woohoo! Let's do it. Let's check mark every box off the list. The to-do list, the bucket list. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then what happens when when we feel like we have all this stuff we want to do, or there's those piles, or there's this thing we want to do, but then we're not doing
Mhm.
it. Or shall I say, I have a thing I want to do and then I haven't done it yet. And what am I procrastinating for?
I know. Well, I always think of procrastination in terms of things that I don't want to do, but I also recognize that there are ways that I procrastinate being in a greater sense of joy and well-being and moving through and completing things that I really do want to do. And that procrastination is just kind of a fancy way of saying scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The faint fear response of like, oh,
Yeah.
it's not here.
Yeah.
I'm not here.
Scared that if I turn towards and move towards and complete something that, something bad's going to happen. And one of the things that we were talking about is that anytime something completes and there's a letting go, even if it's something I really want and want to let go of, or even if it's a celebration, there's also a bit of grieving on the other side of that, the letting go.
Yeah.
And that so many people in my experience have a relationship with grief that is less than kind of actively alive, and one of the things about this course that we're planning to be doing is part of it is like making the space to completely redesign a relationship with grieving and with loss, and doing that both from a sense of opening to feelings about it, but also creating a structure that allows for a really fulfilling experience moving through the whole process.
Yeah. And the whole process of discovering how actually pleasurable it can feel on the other side of unpleasant feelings, but
Mhm.
the opening of the gates is uh, the opposite of when we close the gates and we shut ourselves off to those uncomfortable feelings or feelings that are unpleasant, and then that cuts us off to all of our aliveness and our joy and our
Yeah.
creativity. And so really practicing
Yeah,
opening up to completion.
it all comes through the same channel as you're saying. So if I'm not allowing myself to feel grief or feel sadness or loss, then I'm also not going to make the space to feel a greater sense of joy and connectedness and yeah, and creativity, sense of wonder, which of course I love.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you were talking about the kind of like of procrastinating feeling good, I started thinking about grieving after, like the way I feel when I finish a really great book and I don't want it to be over, and I already missed the book. I just finished a book and I'm already missing my
Mhm.
my characters and the people I was getting close to reading
Mhm.
their stories. So yeah, this idea of how to navigate those feelings too
Mhm.
of loss, but also celebrating a completion and like, yeah,
Mhm.
I finished this book, woohoo, and
Yeah.
I miss it.
Yeah. And we're that great Walt Whitman quote that, we are vast and contain multitudes. I love
Yeah,
that. It's one of my favorites that, in this process of death awareness, of loss awareness, grief awareness, it's also an experience of joy awareness and, all of the other things that go along with it. And that we have the capacity to feel all of it. And the those feelings don't come single file, they can be simultaneous, and how to navigate and get really masterful in the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're watching this and you want to stop procrastinating, if you've got something on your to-do list, either bucket list type thing or just anything that you need to check off of, your to-do list, then join us and reach out to us and get some more information about joining our 8-week seminar on expanding into personal death awareness and curating a fulfilling life.
Yes.